Let's begin and daven as we do. That our learning should be for the zchut of our learning should help to bring back all of the hostages and protect our soldiers and Am Yisrael and all of the innocents and bring a speedy end to all of our wars and be an Ilui Neshama for my mother Shlomo Leah, but Menachem Mendel Rachel.
Amen.
Okay, so so we're still in this sugya talking about disease, and I read ahead, right? The last time we ended off, I read the next part, so that's where we're going to begin from. Hold on, let me just make it more prominent. So Michael Schwartz, why don't you read V'odamar Rebbe Matya?
V'odamar Rebbe Matya, Rabbi Yochanan Chash B'tzifina, Azal Gaba Dahi Matronita.
1 second. I apologize. There's a problem with my mouse, and a little bit harder for me to maneuver. Just a second. Going too far. So,
Where? Okay.
Wait, no. We read that.
Yeah.
Here, Matronita. Here we go. Page 91. This is what we want. Okay. Avdale.
Avdale Milta Hamsha Uma'ale Shabta Marla B'Shabbat Mai Amra Le Lo Trichat Im Itzrachina Mai Amra Le Ishtaba Li De Lo Maglet Ishtaba La Alaha De Israel Lo Megalena Nafak Rasha B'Pirka Vaha Ishtaba La Ahala De Israel Lo Maglena Halam O Yisrael Maglena Va'icha Chilul Hashem. The Magle La Ma'ikra.
Right. I also, 1 second, I didn't do this line right. Second. That's how we should read it.
I will be back in a minute.
Okay. All right. So let's go back. This was a lot of Aramaic that I translated last week. So let's try to get through it. So go ahead. Odamar Rabbi. So Rabbi Matya said, in
addition, Rabbi Matya said Rabbi Yochanan was frightened of, was afraid that he had bitzfidna. I think last week you translated as scurvy.
Yeah, so chash here doesn't mean being afraid. It's from the word meaning to feel. So he means he felt that he was getting sick. He was getting sick with safidna, right? Which apparently is scurvy. So what did he do? Azal gabada hahi matunita.
He went Gaba to a matron, to a woman, presumably here. I don't know, Gaba, I'm not sure what it means here. Just
Gabat, so it's from the word gav, right? The back, but it means you in this context it just means he went to her.
Oh, okay. So he went to this. So he went to a specific matron, a specific woman.
Right, 1 sec. Okay, so
she did something on Yom Chamishi, Thursday, and on Erev Shabbat. He said to her, the Shabbat, what if something happens on Shabbat? And she said, you won't need. And he says, if you do need, she said to him, swear to me that you won't tell. He swore uh, on Hashem, the God of Israel, that he wouldn't say. And then he went out and he gave a shiur, he gave a address, Rasha. Um, but he swore he wouldn't do this. Uh, he swore he wouldn't do this, and he swore on the God of Israel that he wouldn't reveal. But to Amo Yisrael, he did reveal. Uh, but there is it's a Chilul Hashem, uh, and he revealed it uh, initially from the beginning. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a reasonable rough translation, but we have to dig down a little bit so that it makes more sense. So let's go through this a little more carefully. Because what's interesting about this story is we're telling this story because it has to do with treatment, right? Treatment for a sickness. And we're bringing it up because we're talking about treating sickness on Yom Kippur or Shabbat, right? Or maybe Yom Tov. Ostensibly, that's the reason we're bringing it up. But um, so actually, we'll talk. Let's take that side of it for the moment. So in terms of this issue of getting treatment on Shabbat, so what happened? Rabbi Yochanan became ill with scurvy. And so he went to this matronita, he went to this woman who apparently was a healer, and so she treated him, avadale, right? Astalo. She did for him, and she treated him, milta. He, milta just means a thing. There was she did whatever her thing was on Thursday and on Friday. Right. So apparently he went to her on Thursday, he treated her, she treated him, and then Friday she treated him. So on Friday, Amarla b'Shabbat Mai. So what about Shabbat? Meaning, what if I need treatment on Shabbat? Amara lei, so she said to him, Lo tzrichan, you don't need. And he went back and he said, Im itzduchina mai. But if I do need what, then what will I do? So what do we see? So before we go on, so what do we see? Rabbi Yochanan understands that this is a serious illness. How do I know he knows it's? How do I know that he thinks it's a serious illness?
The fact that he's even asking the question of you, what if I need treatment on Shabbat?
Okay, so that exactly. So it implies that he he would take the treatment also on Shabbat. So there's a general rule that the Gemara lays out in Shabbat that we don't do medical treatment on Shabbat unless somebody is besakana, right? Unless they're in danger, and there are different levels of what that means, but the general rule is we don't do it, and it's exact. And the reason is, why we don't do medications on Shabbat as a general rule. You're familiar with this concept?
Yes, because it would involve grinding, and that's one of the malachot of. It's like the assumptions that you'll be grinding medicines.
But so I'll just tweak that a little bit. It's because you might come to grind medicine. In other words, you might come to grind the ingredients that you'll need for whatever medication. And so, as a general, we don't let you take things, even if they're already prepared. We don't let you take them on Shabbat. But what we see here is that Rabbi Yochanan understood his situation to be dangerous. So he understood, and so simple. I'll just say that the tafdina is scurvy. So scurvy can be life threatening. it can be life-threatening, and so he understood that. The Gemara is going to talk a little bit more about it after you. But so far I get that. In other words, as a halachic issue, that's one of the things I'm learning from this story. That somebody who has tzaftina is someone who, if they who can be treated on Shabbat. So that's one thing. But now there's going to be another issue here, which is going to be perhaps more outstanding, and that's this issue of how he gets her to reveal what the treatment is. Now, presumably, he went to her and she gave him something, which the Gemara is going to describe later. Gave her something. She gave him something, which he took, but he didn't know exactly what it was that he was taking. So now he wants to know, what about Shabbat? So what do we assume from here? Why does he need to know now what the treatment is in case he needs it on Shabbat? Why doesn't he just come to her on Shabbat?
Maybe she's not in the Tachum.
Yeah, so maybe she's not accessible. Maybe she's not in the Tchum. Maybe for whatever reason, maybe she won't be accessible on Shabbat. So he needs to know now on Erev Shabbat what he's supposed to do if he needs treatment on Shabbat. So she first of all tries to put him off. She says, "You won't need." And maybe she was right. In other words, we don't know if that was stum to put him off, or because she's, as we see, she's hesitant to reveal the secret of her trade, which is how she prepares the treatment. Um, or she, she really thought that he wasn't going. She really thought that that's enough, that he'll be cured. But for either way, Rabbi Yochanan's not so sure. So he wants to know how, uh, uh, when he's saying "Imitzdochina my," what would I do? So she understands that he wants to know the treatment. He wants to know exactly what she's giving him. So she says, "Ishtavali de lo megalei." Swear to me that you will not reveal. In other words, you won't reveal the secrets of my treatment. Ishtava, so he swore, Lelokad Yisrael de lo megalena. To the God of Israel, I will not reveal. So you have to be very careful about the language that he used. The God of Israel, I will not reveal. So then, presumably, she gave him the treatment, and then he went out darsha b'firka, and then he darshan. In other words, he gave a shiur, and he expounded on this treatment in public in his shiur. So the Gemara, so that's the story, right? So that's the story. So the Gemara, though, is taken aback by his behavior. V'ha'ishtavala. He swore to her. So the Gemara answers, but Gemara answers essentially, but did he really? Because what did he say? He said, "Lelahad Yisrael lo megalen." To the God of Israel, I will not reveal. And what does that imply? Ha lamo Yisrael megalen. It implies that I can reveal it to his people Israel. In other words, the idea is that he worded his oath in such a way that he was not committed to not revealing it, because he just said, "I'm not going to tell God, but I can tell other Jews." Okay, so that seems very sneaky. So the Gemara says, "V'ha'ika chilul Hashem." So what's the chilul Hashem?
That he tricked her, that he said he wasn't going to reveal it, and he did, even though he worked around it. It's not right. It doesn't look good on the surface, at least.
Right. So this is a very important point, which we're going to delve into a little bit today. But this story actually is cited in later halacha that you can't even in this case, let's say swear. In other words, you can't say or just even promise something to a non-Jew, even if you didn't really promise. In other words, even if you worded it in this like lawyerly fashion that you're not really violating whatever your promise was, or whatever you're swearing, because it's a chil Hashem, because the non-Jew isn't going to know that, and they're going to feel tricked. And then what will they say? Why is it a chil Hashem? Because they say, oh, here, this is a Jew. In this case, Rabbi Yochanan was a very prominent rabbi. And they'll say, this is what Jews do. And this is going to, it's going to reflect badly on people who keep the Torah. It's something you're not allowed to do. So on that, the Gemara says, the Megale la me'ikara. He revealed to her from the beginning. So what does that mean? He revealed to her from the beginning. What could that mean?
He made it clear to her that he was going to reveal it in this specific context.
Or could say that. I think well, here. Let's see how Rashi says it. Let's just go over all these Rashis here. Safidna. So this is the sickness that Rabbi Yochanan had. Paul, why don't you read Rashi? Safidna, Chole.
חולה השיניים, החניכיים, הוא מקריל בפה וגומר לבני מעיים, הוא מסוכן. מה זה, איזה, which sickness is that?
So apparently it's scurvy. I don't know how you say
Scurvy.
So scurvy was you might know it like this. I don't know what it is in French, but it was a sickness that sailors would get until they discovered that if they had citrus,
vitamin C.
Right. So it's a severe lack of vitamin C. And in fact, actually, it's funny because I was talking to my brother today. I wanted to ask him that, I forgot. But I looked in Wikipedia and on one or two of the medical sites, and one of the early symptoms is in your gums. You'll see it in the teeth and the gums. I think they start to bleed a lot, and in fact, it will get worse, and it will go into your internal organs, into your stomach, and eventually you can die from it. So
ascorbate. You say scurvy. Scurvy. Ascorbate.
Ascorbate. Right. Okay.
So
there we go. Like ascorbic acid, right? Yeah, maybe. Lo yodea.
She probably gave him to eat lemon.
Well,
lemon
no,
juice.
actually, we'll find out what she gave him. We'll find out in the next part of it. The Gemara says
the Gemara goes on.
No, it's interesting. She didn't give him. She didn't treat him like that. And okay, we'll get into that in a minute. So matronita, Rashi says.
matronita nochit הייתה. Okay. It's a non-Jew woman.
Non-Jewish woman.
Lady, but matronita small lady or something.
Yes.
Respectful lady. Yeah.
A respectable lady.
Lady.
Right. So after they refu acham shavamale shabta. So Rashi just explained.
יום חמישי בשבת וערב שבת. מעלה שבתא. מעלה שבתא is Friday. It's Erev
No,
Shabbat.
yes, yeah.
Mhm.
Male would mean like the day that comes into Shabbat. How you would understand it more
אוקיי,
literally.
אוקיי, כמו
So
מעלה
that,
בהר, משהו.
right, the approach.
כל שבת.
Sure. Supposed to get a new mouse today. So just bear with me.
העיקר חילול השם, שהיא סבורה שעבר על שבועתו.
Okay.
כן, עבר על שבועתו, אבל זה חילול השם. חילול השם is not only שעבר על שבועתו, חילל את השם. Something very,
Right.
very...
In other words, but what's Rashi explaining?
By not respecting his promise, serment that he, השבועה שלו. It was a שבועה בשם השם. It's something.
Right. So
one of the 9 of the 10 commandments.
Okay.
Very serious.
It's very serious. In other words, why is it a Chilul Hashem? Because she'll think that he violated his Shua, and thinking that he violated his Shua, then, as Michael Schwartz said earlier, then she's going to feel tricked, and then she'll attribute this kind of behavior to Jews generally.
To Jews, yes.
And Jews who represent the Torah.
You can't believe them.
You can't believe them. And here, Jews say they go by the Torah, and you see if that's true, then this is what their Torah teaches them, and this is what their God teaches them, and so that's a Chilul Hashem, right? That's a desecration of God's name if you behave that way. So the Gemara says the Megale La Me'ikara, that he revealed to her to begin with. Rashi says, go ahead.
שעת גלילה לא נשבעתי לך, כי כך אמרתי. I understand what is written, but I don't understand what
it means.
What
okay,
it means.
So from Mehahi Shata Galila, so from that moment he revealed to her. From what moment did he reveal to her?
From the moment of giving his apparent promise.
Right. So from the moment that he gave the shvuah, he revealed to her, Lo nishbati lach, I didn't swear to you, ki kach amarti, because this is what I said. In other words, the language, so apparently this is what happened. She said to him, Ishtavali de lo megalei, swear to me that you won't reveal. And then he said the following lashon. He must have said, Le'elokad Yisrael lo megalen. And she thought it meant, I'm swearing by the God of Israel. Ishtava le'elokad Yisrael lo megalen. I'm swearing by the God of Israel that I will not reveal. But he said, Ishtava le'elokad Yisrael lo megalen. That's what he said. So she thought it meant, I swear by the God of Israel that I will not reveal. And what he had in mind was, I swear that to the God of Israel I will not reveal it. I'm not going to reveal it to God.
That's tricky. That's also not
no. So that's exactly so that's how the Gemara goes. So let's just read that part again. So she said to him, Ishtavali de lo megale, swear to me that you will not reveal. And so he said, Ishtaval el kadi Yisrael lo megalena. That's what he said. And then he went out and darshaned it in public, right? He went out and he gave in his shir, he explained to his students what the remedy was. So then the Gemara says, "V'ha'ishtavala," he swore to her. So the Gemara explains, what did he really say? "Le'elokad Yisrael lo megalen." To the God of Israel, I won't reveal it, but by implication means I could reveal it to anyone else. Hala mo Yisrael megalen. In his case, it means I can reveal it to the people of Israel.
So this goes to show that
So
sometimes
wait. Even if you're going to make a joke, just hold on. Ha'ika Hilul Hashem. So by doing this, by acting this way, this is a Chilul Hashem because he used this language, this Talmudic language to trick her. So the Gemara says, not really, because the Megale La Meikara, he revealed to her from the beginning, and the way Rashi explains, what is Meikara? Meikara here means that apparently this is the way I think you have to understand it. He said what he said. And then she revealed to him what the remedy was. And then he said to her, listen, you should know that I didn't actually swear not to reveal this to anybody. And he explained his language to her. So in other words, he said it to her before he left and said it in public. And so at that point, she apparently relented. So he didn't go off and reveal it to everybody before explaining to her, listen, you should know that this is what I'm going to do, or this, I didn't, you may have thought, he must have said something like this to her. You may have thought that I swore that I wasn't going to reveal this, but all I said was, I'm not going to reveal it to God, but I could reveal it to other people. I can reveal it to my fellow Jews. And apparently she relented. So, yeah, so Paul, I see you shaking your head. And yes, it's still it's still really a very difficult thing. So here, let me switch.
Then it's really Chilul Hashem.
Well, the reason, no, okay, wait a second.
It's it's not technically Chilul Hashem, but it's Chilul Hashem. Because he tricked her. By tricking her, he showed her that Jews are tricky. And you can't.
Okay, so your argument is that it's still a Chilul Hashem, even if she agreed. Even if in the end she agreed that it's going to be revealed, but nonetheless, she would feel that she was tricked, and that in and of itself was the Chilul Hashem. Could I say the other way? Could I say that what would be the reason to say that it's not a Chilul Hashem if he behaved this way? Why might I say it's not a Chilul Hashem?
that she understood, after his explanation, she understood fully what he was going to do, and then she acquiesced.
So yes, at the point that she acquiesced, then we'll have to say that it's not a Chilul Hashem anymore because he did tell her what his intentions were. So I want to look at two things before we go on. I want to look at two things. First, I want to look at what the Rambam says about Chilul Hashem in such a case. Does everybody see the Rambam? Is that on the screen? Yeah, okay. So this is in the Rambam Hilchot Yisodei Torah, Perek A, where he's talking about Ben Hayater, he's talking about Chilul Hashem. Hold on. Let's take a look for a moment at the halacha preceding. So Michael Werner, you're up to bat. Kol ha'over mida'ato.
Kol haver midato below ones alachat mikol mitzvot ha'amorot betorah b'sa'at b'nefesh
B'shat nefesh.
b'shat nefesh lehakis. הרי זה מחלל את השם, ולפיכך נאמר בשבועת השקר, וחוללת את שם והיללת את שם אלוקיך, אני השם.
Okay, but why don't you try to translate that?
So everyone who transgresses from his knowledge, maybe from his word.
From his knowledge, in other words, knowingly.
Oh, knowingly, okay. Below onus, and not under duress. Or he
that's fine. Not under duress.
Not under duress. From among one of the mitzvot that are said in the Torah, and I don't remember in the Bishat Nefesh, the Nefesh, I don't recall.
Disgusting.
Yeah, could also here. In the spirit, he's saying the spirit of derision.
Okay.
Okay. Bishat nefesh. Okay.
And about this, concerning this, it is said.
Wait, did you say lahachis?
Lahachis. Okay, I'm sorry. Lahachis. In order to provoke.
Okay, yeah, in order to make angry.
Or to make
right?
angry.
Right. So the hachis in this regard is, in other words, we're talking about someone who derisively, knowingly and derisively violate, and without being compelled, right? Not under duress. He and lahachis, to make angry, to do something to make God angry. In other words, they're going against the Torah, not because, in other words, there are different categories, right? So somebody who violates the Torah, you can violate it not knowingly, you can violate it completely by accident, you can violate it not knowingly, meaning you don't realize what you're doing. You know what you're doing, but you don't realize it's it's asur. That would be b'shogeg. And even b'meizid, there's also this category of people who are over for their own, because of their desire. In other words, you know that you're not allowed to eat a cheeseburger, but you really like cheeseburgers. And the only reason you'll eat a cheeseburger is not because you want to make God angry, but because you really like cheeseburgers. And then we're talking about a guy who, that's not the point. They're violating the Torah because they're trying to do it in a kind of a rebellious act. That's hachis. They're trying to do it to make God angry. So in any of these instances, hareze mechalel Hashem. Back to you, Michael.
Behold this in mechalel et Hashem. This is disgrace to God's name. And the lefichach, and about this it is said, this is said about a false vow, and you shall profane God's profane the name of your God, Ani
Hashem.
Hashem.
That's the Yud Yud here. So what it says here is, right, Lo tignovu v'lo tichachashu, right? Don't steal and don't deny, right? Don't deny that you stole. V'lo tishakru ish bamito. Person should not lie to his friend. V'lo tishavu bishmi l'shaker. And do not swear in my name falsely. V'chilaut et shem elokecha. In other words, and thereby you will profane the name of the Lord your God, Ani Hashem. So swearing in God's name falsely is a chilul Hashem. This is it's the very definition of chilul Hashem. Okay, let's read a little bit further. V'ima var, let me just raise this up a little. V'ima var ba'asara.
And if he transgresses from among the
Well, bi'asara.
Oh, be'asara Yisrael.
What do you think that means?
Ten Commandments?
No, 10 people of Israel. There's 10 Jews.
So
if he does this, sorry, say that again.
If he transgresses, whether in the presence of a minion, as it were, this profanes God's name, profanes the name in among a multitude.
Right. But Rabim in this sense means in public.
In public, right.
Okay. You can keep going. V'chein.
And thus, everyone that spreads, that publicizes.
Why don't you read it first?
Okay, the V'chein kol hapores.
Haporesh.
Haporesh.
It's Poresh, yeah.
Haporesh me'avara o asam mitzvah lo mipnei devar be'olam. Lo pachad v'lo yira v'lo levakesh kavod ela mipnei haborei baruch hu keminite keminiat Yosef hatakit atzmo be'eshet rabo harei ze mekadesh et Hashem.
Okay. So now, v'chein kol haporesh me'avera.
So thus, everyone who refrains from a sin.
Okay. What does poresh literally mean? So poresh is to spread out. And that's what you were thinking. Poresh, like the same root that you get lahafrish. Do you know that word, lahafrish?
That's like to slice or to, no.
Almost. Michael Schwartz.
To separate out?
To separate. So kol haporesh me'avera. Anyone who who separates themselves from avera. Right? Okay. Oh, asa mitzvah lo mipnei davar ba'olam.
Or who does a mitzvah not because of something in the world, and not from say anxiety, and not from fear.
Well, pachad is also fear, right? Fear or awe. You can translate those in different ways, but I'm not sure anxiety is the right word, but could also be applicable.
Okay, so from different kinds of fear.
Okay. Below the vakesh kavod.
And not in order to seek honor.
Uh-huh.
but rather because of the Creator, blessed be He, as um, um, as Joseph, I know this is referring to his not sleeping with his master's wife.
Okay, so limnoa means what?
Prevent,
Limnoa?
as it
Right.
prevented or abstained or held back.
Right. So as Yosef, right, prevented himself or held back.
As Joseph the righteous himself refrained from with the wife of his master. Behold, this sacralizes. I mean,
Sanctifies, we usually say.
Sanctifies. Yes, I sanctify. I couldn't find the word. Sanctifies.
That's okay. Oh, that reminds me, because we got stuck on this other word last week about chofef. Chofef in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, it means to overlap. I said some things that are very close together, that are touching. It's used to mean overlap. Anyway, we may come back to that, but I should have started that off, but I didn't want to digress. Okay, so what do we see from the second half? So from the first half of this halacha, the Rambam describes this notion of chilul Hashem, and chilul Hashem can come about when somebody violates a law of the Torah in public, and meaning in front of 10 other Jews, and he's doing it lahachis, b'shat nefesh. He's doing it in this rebellious, sort of derisive way in order to anger God. So that's a chilul Hashem. So if you go, in Israel, it's not that hard to find a minyan of people on the street. You go in front of a minyan of people on the street, and you eat your cheeseburger. So that's a chilul Hashem, right? Presumably that's a chilul Hashem. In other words, if you're doing it, we would say dafka. In other words, you're doing it for of your own free will, in order to violate the law, in order to violate this mitzvah. You're doing it publicly. That's a chilul Hashem. So what do we get from the second half?
That the inverse is also true.
So go ahead to explain.
That if you refrain from, or if you refrain from sinning, or you do a mitzvah without any ulterior motive, not from fear, not because of anything of this world, not in order to seek honor, then you are sanctifying God.
Okay, so very good. So we have these two poles of chilul Hashem and kiddush Hashem.
I mean, the key difference being that you're sanctifying God even if you're not in the presence of 10 people. It seems.
You're right. So he doesn't say you need 10 people to be Mekadesh Hashem, although he gets into that later and elsewhere. That's tricky. We touched on this earlier in the Gemara when we talked about the idea that there are three Aveirot for which one is Ya'areg Val Ya'bor. And that gets into this question of Kiddush Hashem and under what circumstances. We didn't delve deeply into it, but the question of if a minyan is, if or how a minyan is relevant to Kiddush Hashem, we'll have to leave that for another time.
However,
okay, so now go ahead.
The fact that he brings in, Yosef refraining from sinning with his master's wife would dafka suggests that this is a case where there's very clearly not a minyan present.
Very good.
There's only
yes.
one person present, presumably.
Right. Very good. So one could make that argument. Okay, Michael Schwartz. Now we're at the one I want to look at. Yesh Devarim.
יש דברים אחרים שהם בכולל חילול השם, והוא שיעשה אדם גדול בתורה ומפרסם בחסידות דברים שהבריות מרננות אחריו בשבילן, ואף על פי שאינם עבירות, הרי זה חילל את השם.
Okay, so let's just take this first part. Go ahead.
And there are other things that are included in Chilul Hashem, that he will do, that a great man, a man great in Torah and famous for his chesed, things that.
Well, Chassidut here would mean like, we might think of that as like frumkeit.
Okay, pious is right.
Piousness, right? Very good.
Piety, and Devarim, the things that the public is uplifted after him or because of him.
So Leranein literally mean it's another word like for singing joyously, but it's also Merananot Acharav, means like that people would talk about him.
Oh, okay, so he did great things and people would talk about it, even though that, and if he does something that's not, even though it's not a sin, it still could be a Chilul Hashem.
Okay, and what I mean talk about means it would make people gossip, right? L'ranein achar somebody, people, it means that you will gossip about somebody. Okay, so the Rambam.
So he did something was not kosher, and that people would talk about. It would cause people to talk about.
Okay, so what's different now? What does he introduce now that we didn't see in the previous halacha?
That you can have a Chilul Hashem that's not necessarily doing a sin.
Right. Maybe he's not actually being over an Aveirah. The Rambam starts with the base idea of Chilul Hashem is you do an Aveirah, you do it b'farhesia, you do it b'rabim, and you do it lahachis, b'shat nefesh, and so forth. You do it in all that way. That's a Chilul Hashem. But there's another kind of Chilul Hashem where you don't necessarily have to be over on an Aveirah. Maybe this is not something maybe you're doing something the Torah doesn't describe or doesn't forbid in some way. But nonetheless, you could be Machal Hashem. And what's that? If somebody is a Gadol b'Torah, Farsem b'Chasidut, somebody is, is a great person in Torah, means he learns Torah, he's known for his piety, as you say, but he does things that people will gossip about. People will look at him. In other words, there's this category of things that is very much like the sugya that we're doing, right? In other words, that we're worried that people are going to say, oh, that's not ethical, or that's not moral, or that's not the way we do things here, and it's not a correct way of conducting oneself. And the Rambam goes to give examples. So hold on, let me bring this up a little further. Oop, a little too far. Here, Kigon.
So Kigon shelokech ve'enu noten damei halakach la'alter, v'hu yesh lo, v'nim s'u mucharim tovim, v'hu makifan, mafikan, or sheyirvei b'schok, or ba'achila p'shtiya etzel ami aretz u'b'neihen, or she'ein divaro, Dibaro binachat im habriut, be'enu makblin b'saver panim yafot, ele ba'al katatav v'ka'as, kiyotze b'devrim ha'elu, akol lefi gadlo shel hachakam tzarich sheyid kadek al atzmo v'yaseh lifnim b'shurat hadin.
Okay, so let's go back through these. So now he gives a bunch of examples. Kigon shalokeach. Go ahead.
So, for example, he takes something and he doesn't pay for it immediately, and who yeshlo, that he has.
And what does he mean? What does he have?
Oh, and he has the money to do
He
it.
has the money to pay for it then. Right? So he takes something and he has the money, but he has the money to pay for it. In other words, when we say take something here, it's the lashon of mekach umemka. Right? In other words, he buys something, but he doesn't pay for it immediately, even though he has the money.
איפה?
בוא תשמע חדשות איתנו.
לא, אבל אני בשיעור מרים. אני נרדמתי.
Okay. ונמצאו המוכרים טובין והוא מקיפן. And what does that mean?
And the sellers, the merchants, claim, and he puts them off.
Yeah, he goes on the Haim Tovin. They're demanding. They demand payment, and he, goes around to them. He's essentially making them give it to him on credit. That's another term for credit. It's a Gemara term for credit. The hakafa. If you take something the hakafa, you're taking it on credit. We don't say that so much in modern Hebrew anymore, but there was a time, I think, when people still said it. Oshi arbe bischok,
or that he increases in laughter or games, or he eats and drinks in the place of Amei Haaretz, unlearned people, and among them, or that his word is not pleasant with the people, and he doesn't receive people with a pleasant face. Rather, he's someone who has the he's short-tempered and angry, and similar to things like this. And it's all according to the greatness of this chacham, and that we need to be particular on. He needs to be particular on himself and do more than what the law requires. Go beyond forgot the term. Beyond
to be within the to be within the line of the law. There's maybe a term. Okay, but yes, we understand that he does more than what the law he needs to do more than what the law itself requires. So this is another idea of Chilul Hashem. So you can have this notion of Chilul Hashem applies even in a case where the person involved didn't actually do an Aveira. And there's a Gemara that we're going to get to a little bit further. But this is also, right, the Kesef Mishnah brings a Gemara from a little bit later on. So I can look at that now. Okay, but in any event.
Does this apply to Chavei Knesset who think they are Anashim Gdolim?
So listen, I'm not. I don't want to make any political statements here. Look, it applies to anybody. One can argue, right? The Rambam. One can argue this applies to anybody on any level who is seen in the public as representing Torah. In other words, the Chacham, the Talmid Chacham, who's a Gadol B'Torah. We have this in other halachot, right? That why do you stand up for a Talmid Chacham when he walks into the room? It's not because of his personal kavod. It's not because he's personally honorable. But he represents kavod haTorah. His mere presence as a person who learns is representing. It's a physical embodiment of Torah. So you stand up for him when he walks in the room. So in a similar way, this person, the way he conducts himself, is a representation of the Torah in public. And you see what the Rambam says at the end that it's always the Hakol Lefi Gadlo Shel Chacham, right? It all goes according to the greatness of that particular Chacham. So you don't have to be the Gadol HaTorah. You don't have to be the Gadol Hador for this to apply. It'll apply relative to how people see you in your relationship to Torah. So it's a very important point, and this is the point that we see with our Gemara. In other words, that this and our Gemara is also brought elsewhere from other people as a proof to this notion. So I'll just show you one other thing in this regard, and then I think we'll stop for today. There's I have to change the screen. So this is the Shulchan Aruch in Hilchot Nidarim, and I'm not going to go through all of this because this is really too much of a digression. But here in Yoredeya, Siman Reish Lamed Bet, at the beginning of this particular halakha, and it's a very long halakha, Sif Yud Daled, it talks about Hanodero Nishbala Anas. If somebody makes a neder or a shvua, a vow or an oath to an anas is somebody who's forcing you to do something. In other words, and for example, let's say here, lefikach nodrin lahorgim l'mochsim, im hu moches amod below tivui melech. So you can make a neder to a murderer. In other words, a murderer says, do this. And even if he doesn't say, or I'll kill you, but you know that he could kill you. So you can promise to do something that you know that you're not going to do. Because now you're nanast, right? You're in a position where you're being forced to do something that is against your will. So the Torah doesn't hold you liable for making a neder that you're going to violate. And also the mochsim were the tax collectors who often were also extortionists, right? That they would extort money from people because of their position as tax collectors. And it says, right, if he's not there under the direction of the king. So it goes into all kinds of related halachot. But here I'm going to go back a little. Oop. So this is the Ramah. All of this is talking about when it's possible to violate the oath or the vow where the anas, the person forcing you, doesn't know. Or it won't be made known. Or it won't ultimately be revealed to the person you're making a neder to. But if it would be made known to the person you're making the neder, the shvua to asur, even then it will be forbidden to make a neder, even if it's a neder that you're being forced to make. You're still not allowed to make that under duress if you know that the neder and the violation of the neder is going to become known to the person that forced you. That's why Tzidkiyahu was punished for violating his oath to Nebuchadnezzar, right? That's Tzidkiyahu, right, was appointed by Nebuchadnezzar to be king, but he rebelled against him, Tzidkiyahu rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar, and that's why he was punished. Daladayin means da'at atzmo. That's something that the Ramah said of his own opinion. Afa pisha haya b'derech ones, even though he had to swear his allegiance to Nebuchadnezzar under duress. Mihu, nonetheless, im hodia laha'anas miyad sheyatsa me'onso shehaya lo t'nai b'libo v'lachein ya'avor al shvuato leka lemechash ho'il v'haya anus mitchila. So now the Ramah makes an exception to this. It says, if the person who is being forced to make this oath makes it known to the person forcing him immediately, immediately after he's no longer under duress, and he makes it known to him that hayalo tanai belibo, in his heart, he made the oath or the vow conditionally. That's why he's not really going to transgress whatever he vowed. If that's the case, in other words, if those are the circumstances that he reveals to the person who's forcing him immediately when he's no longer in danger, then leka lemechash, then there's nothing to fear. In other words, we're not worried about such a making such an oath and then, as it were, violating it. Since he was in fact under duress at the beginning, from the beginning, and the source for that is our Gemara. So it's a little bit different, but it's similar, right? In other words, what's the duress that Rabbi Yochanan is under?
He is dangerous. He has a dangerous illness, and he needs a remedy.
And he needs a remedy. So then I might ask, okay, but he needs the remedy. What allows him to do this? To do this tricky language, which is going to allow him to reveal it to other people. Why should that be permitted?
In case they need it also in the future.
So I think that's what you have to say. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan felt under duress to reveal this because he knew that this was a real health issue, not just for him. And so the woman who has the remedy, the matronita, she's not an anas in this tradition, in the way we usually think of an anas. She doesn't have a knife at his throat, but metaphorically she has a knife at his throat, because if she doesn't treat him, he might die, and he needs to know the treatment, and he realizes that this treatment is going to be helpful in general. So he goes through. He does what he does, but what do I mean? He does what he does. So he makes this shvuah, but he makes it in this very particular language, and then as soon as he gets what he needs, he reveals to her, so she understands what he did. He doesn't run off, and then she might find out later, and that would really be a big chilul Hashem. And he ends up by saying, "Mihu hakol lefi tzorech ha'inyan." Nonetheless, it's all according to what's necessary for that particular matter. So, it goes on, and I don't pretend to be an expert in these halachot either, but go ahead.
Wouldn't this suggest that he not only needs to reveal his intention, but he needs to reveal the reason for his intention? i.e., I'm doing this because in the future members of the community may need this remedy.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And again, it gets it gets complicated. So there's a long discussion here in the Shach, the Sifsei Cohen, who was one of the Nosei Kalim on the Shulchan Aruch, and he discusses this comment. And he and the Ramah have a slightly different view of how this works out. So this isn't our issue now to delve into, but I'm just showing you that our Gemara serves as a basis for, for this for this practical issue. It's a kind of a practical issue that hopefully none of us will ever have to worry about personally, but the issue of Chilul Hashem is not a small issue. It does have to be dealt with, and that's one of the things that we see here. So I'm going to stop here today, and next week we'll see what she prescribed for him. And you can go. I encourage all of you to go ahead and read in the Gemara Hala, and that's it. Any last questions or comments? Okay, Michael Werner, where are you now?
Oh, I am dog sitting in German colony.
Okay.
Really, a really beautiful apartment. I think
It looks very nice. Okay, and how's Murphy? Do you still walk him?
I still walk in. Yeah, it's my lunch break. Yeah, during I wasn't walking him over the last week, or most of the last week, for obvious reasons.
Is he going to be jealous of the other dogs that you take care of? Okay. All right, everybody, you should have a Bezrat Hashem, a quiet week, and we'll see you, God willing, next week.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.